Now if we choose to use the standard preview, we can actually now dig down a little deeper and define just exactly what size that preview actually is. Now in order to do this, we need to invoke our catalog setting dialog box. Yep, that's right folks, another dialog box, and there's a few more to come yet, I can tell you. Now in order to invoke the catalog settings dialog box, we can use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Alt, on a PC, or Command-Option, on a Mac, or alternatively we can select catalog settings from the Lightroom drop-down menu on the Mac or the Edit menu on a PC. Now if this dialog box opens on either the Metadata or General tabs, just click on File Handling. Now we have access to settings for the size of the preview, the quality setting of the preview, and should you choose to go with a one-to-one render option, you have the facility to define how long Lightroom hangs on to those previews before discarding them. Now the default size for a standard preview is 1440 pixels, which for a preview is quite a high resolution file whilst not being super big, but we have various options we can choose from. Seeing as a preview from a smaller RAW file takes less time to render, then you might go and choose a larger file size option, or conversely, if you're not governed by constraints of either disk capacity or render time, then you may well elect to go for a larger preview size even from a larger RAW file. If we move on to the quality setting, then we find we have three options here: high, medium and low. The default setting is medium, but here's the interesting point about preview quality. At a setting of high, then the preview is actually rendered based on the ProPhoto RGB color space, whilst at medium and low settings it's rendered based on the Adobe color space. Now I can just hear you all asking, what does this mean, Andy? Well, in the high quality setting, your previews are going to be rendered at a greater level of color accuracy because the render process will have access to a much larger color space. But then again, this does incur a slightly larger file size, and so your computer may just run a little bit more slowly. But as long as you're not running massive preview sizes, then the trade-off is worth it because your preview's colour and tonal content will have a greater relevance to your image. If you like, it'll be more real. And come on folks, after all, it's just a preview we're talking about here, and it's not like it's a full-size image. But if you're working on a slightly lower specification computer than you'd actually like, for example a laptop, then little savings in time and file size can make a big difference in the speed of your overall workflow. Now the last variable in the file handling tab of the catalog settings allows you to define just how long Lightroom keeps one-to-one previews inside the image previews folder. But this is only relevant if you elect to go with one-to-one previews in the first place. Now, as I've already said, these one-to-one previews can amount to a serious bit of disk space if you're importing hundreds of images on a regular basis. So you have the option to allow Lightroom to automatically dump these files after 1, 7 or 30 days, or to keep them permanently. Now, to delete any preview from the Lightroom catalogue sort of tends to defeat the whole Lightroom exercise if you ask me, and yet keeping one-to-one previews in any great volume can give you a touch of bother, so if you like, you're somewhat caught between the proverbial rock and hard place. To be honest, for my own workflow on both PC and Mac, I always use standard previews at 1440 pixels, but I switch the preview quality to high. Now, back in the introduction to this training title, I said that storing the Lightroom catalogue on your system drive, i.e. your C drive, wasn't exactly the end of the world, and to be honest, it isn't. but I like to keep my system drive as clean and free from the vagaries of an ever-expanding image folder by changing the location of the catalogue to the same drive that I use for my raw storage, and back up the catalogue to the same drive as I back my raw files up to. Now, in order to change the location of the catalogue, we need to carry out a couple of simple operations, and we'll do these in the next lesson.